Hi guys, and welcome to this week's reading. It's quite interesting as Cosmic Heart Source came straight out right away. And it came out last week as well to lead the reading. So I will be reading this in the mindset that this reading is a continuation of last week's reading. It's almost like it's an unfoldment of the message, so we're going another layer deeper. So if you didn't listen to last week's reading, you may want to. You certainly do not have to be able to follow this reading, but it may give an extra layer of understanding to it. But this first card, Cosmic Heart Source, is our reminder that we are all one on a cosmic level, right? That we are all a part of this God consciousness or Christ consciousness, or as this card calls it, Cosmic Heart Source. So at the bottom, it reads, source of all, true home, just be, and heart connection. I don't want to be too repetitive from last week, but this is basically a reminder, right? That we all have this spark of source that exists within us and connects us to oneness. So anytime that you do feel separate or that you don't belong or fit in, just stop, take a deep breath, and center yourself, and you can connect to Christ within and know that none of that is true, right? So from this beautiful Mayan oracle deck, we have the card of Cheek Chan, and this is like the serpent energy or the life force energy. So this card is about our Kundalini energy and letting it rise. And this fire energy is carried on down here. I just lost my train of thought. The fire energy is carried on down here. And these tarot cards actually pair together, interestingly enough. But again, I don't want to get ahead of myself. If what I was thinking about comes to me later, I'll bring that back up, but I just completely lost track of myself. So all of this fire energy combined with this Cosmic Heart Source energy, right? Which for me, to be very clear, is the Christ light. This brings me to this story of Saint Lucy or Santa Lucia, because it is her feast day this upcoming Friday. And I have a deep love for her and what she stands for. And her story is quite obscured, as her story often is, right? Powerful feminine figures have this his story, right? History, where they are white and all we are left with is threads of the original. But you know what? As weavers, we can work with threads of the original and follow them to the truth. So one of the most popular stories about Saint Lucy talks about how they tried to burn her, but the flames wouldn't touch her. And there's various versions of this story, from the very mundane, where the wood just refused to catch fire, to her being engulfed, but also untouched by flames, right? And then everything that could fall in between those two storylines. And fire is all about cleansing and purification and transformation, right? But she already had given herself to Christ. And it was actually her refusal to go against that, right? Because she was standing her ground, that got her the order to be burned alive, right? And it's very important to highlight that this story is very far from what Christianity in the church is trying to sell us today. This was a very different time where identifying yourself as a Christian, it was about aligning yourself to the Christ within, right? It was about developing your resurrection body, going against pagan practices of the time. And once again, right, it's so important to stress the time that this was happening. When we talk about her going against pagan practices, this isn't about nature and following the wheel of the year, right? This is what like pagan might mean to people today. But at that time, the pagan practices were being twisted, and people that were in high up places were taking advantage, right? And they were demanding ridiculous offerings and what have you to, to guarantee the crops or a good year ahead. You could say that it was almost more like politics at that point. And Christianity spreading was really about the time changing from being in a place where we look outside of ourselves for guidance to going within, right? And so the point of me bringing all of this up, as I said, is it is St. Lucy's feast day this upcoming Friday. It's December the 13th. It's always December the 13th. And she is the feminine archetype for the light bringer. And she's often shown wearing a wreath of candles on her head, or a wreath with candles. And she guides the way. So she wears this wreath with candles on her so she can guide the way. So as we enter this period that is the darkest part of the year, right? We have the darkest days of the year right now. She shines the light, and she brings us the sustenance of knowledge, right? Because in her story, she's often shown carrying a tray of sweet breads, and wheat has always been symbolic of God's provisions, abundance, and spiritual nourishment, right? Wheat keeps us alive, both physically and in spirit. If you think about it, right, it was the introduction of being able to grow crops that enabled mankind, or humankind, right, to progress towards more spiritual pursuits, as they no longer had to constantly travel and hunt for survival. So wheat and crops in general have always been associated with the turning point in civilizations, where they were able to form larger communities and stay put, right? Because being able to grow crops, it takes us out of our base level survival instincts, where we have to travel and hunt to feed ourselves. So this is where wheat ties into being symbolic of wisdom and the divine Sophia energy. Because when we're able to stay put and we feel a bit more comfortable in life, that's when we can start our spiritual development. So St. Lucy helps to guide us, right, with her wreath of candles on her head. She helps to guide us as we walk through the fire, as we face our shadows during this dark period of time. And she brings us the wisdom in her sweet breads on a tray, right? that we need to overcome these challenges we face, right? So instead of being consumed by the fire, we can come out stronger. And Cheek Chand ties into this, as this is the flint and the tinder of the sacred fire, right? We need to raise this energy within, right? This isn't an actual physical fire we are walking through. So this is our inner life force energy rising within us and purifying us from the inside out, right? And the serpent energy rises all the way through us so we can receive wisdoms and messages from a divine level, right? In the book for this card, it says it is to use the body as a tool for transformation, learn how to use passion and the senses as a means of access and alignment to higher consciousness, and to follow your gut level intuitions and instincts to make choices in the moment, right? And with gut level intuitions and instincts, we always know, right? We always know if something is right or wrong, like instantly. And then for some reason, we tend to go back on instinct, either to please other people or because we don't trust ourselves. So this is really about being able to listen to that first knowing and sticking to it. Not being swayed from what you know is right or wrong for you, right? This is the body wisdom that Cheek Chand brings us. And it's in complete alignment, right, with the energy that St. Lucia stands for, standing your ground, not being swayed to please others, right? So moving on to the tarot, we've got the Two of Cups, the Queen of Wands, and the Knight of Cups. So very, very interesting, as you can see that the colors of these two cards are the same, just flipped. So we've got turquoise over violet and violet over turquoise. And as the colors suggest, right, these cards are connected in the system, right? So the Two of Cups in this deck is called the New Messenger, and the Queen of Wands is a new message. So with how these cards came out, you've got the new messenger bringing the new message. And then this Knight of Cups, also violet, but now over gold. So we've got the violet in the depths, then it's brought into consciousness and it stays up here in consciousness. But now, instead of being over turquoise, we've moved on into it being over gold. So really, with the gold, it's the Christ energy being brought through after the transformational walk through the fire, right? So I'm going to go through, don't worry, and talk about each card a little bit more in depth. But back to the Two of Cups. This is a card of harmony and the merging of opposites, right? Actually, in the more common Rider-Waite depiction of the Two of Cups, it's actually a man and a woman. They're facing each other. And in between them, they've got a caduceus. And the caduceus is quite literally symbolic of this Kundalini energy that Cheek Chand represents, right? Because Cheek Chand is the serpent energy. And the caduceus is the rod, which is meant to be like our spine. With the two serpents, right, this life force energy intertwining around it. So this is rising that energy up our spine. So as the messenger card, at this time, it's really representing this rising serpent energy, being the messenger, And in allowing it to rise, which happens when we find balance and harmony within, right? Because we've got this, the masculine and the feminine coming together in balance within us, right? This is when the new message, the Queen of Wands card, can come through. So now that this vital life force energy is risen, our crown is open, so we can receive the messages that we need from Spirit to overcome this trial by fire, right? Because remember we said that St. Lucy, they tried to burn her, but the flames wouldn't even touch her. So now we can receive the messages that we need from Spirit to overcome this trial by fire that is surrounding us. And the Queen of Wands is about success through inner strength and courage. So really being able to stand your ground and not give in when it comes to doing what you know is right. Now, some of us may be having some sort of messaging come through from past lives, specifically, but not necessarily, but specifically in Egypt. And I say this because the Queen of Wands in many tarot decks refers to Egypt. Not so much in this specific card, but often the clasp for the Queen of Wands cape will have Bastet on it, right? Who's like a deity or a goddess in Egypt, as well as it will have a black cat at her feet. Once again, bringing in that Bastet energy. And I only thought of that connection as, interestingly, this next card, which is the Knight of Cups in this deck, in this specific deck, which refers to color therapy system. I know I say this every week, but in case somebody's tuning in that doesn't know, this deck refers to a color therapy system, and in that system, the bottle that goes with this card is called the Egyptian bottle. And working with that bottle can bring remembrance and access to past life memories in ancient Egypt, right? And even if Egypt is not your thing, this bottle more generally is called the puppeteer, like literally a puppet master. And also interesting, when this bottle is seen as coming together, this bottle is seen as coming together, the two colors, to make orange, like this Cheech Chong card, right? And what I mean by that is that the bottle has two colors in it, right? The violet and gold. But when you shake it, it combines to form an orange. And the theme of this card and bottle is the wisdom of transformation and the deep joy after the transformation of experience. And on a spiritual level, it encourages us to change our ideals, right? To help us to relieve our fears and supporting us in learning about ourselves in this process of transformation. On a psychological level, it helps us to reduce the desire to blame others by treating ourselves more gently. And that is very interesting wording, as it already acknowledges that we blame others not to attack them, but because there is some shadow aspect within us that we aren't facing, right? So I'm going to read it again. It helps to reduce the desire to blame others by treating ourselves more gently. An interesting thing to think about, right? So lastly, on an emotional level, this card is about overcoming the deep fear of the present and the past. So when this card is being called the puppeteer, it's recognizing the storyline that you're living and how we tend to automatically do certain things. And it's just this loop from past lives that we keep reliving, right? We're like on this karmic wheel, the wheel of samsara, I think, right? Doing what's comfortable. So this card is about recognizing that and being able to put a stop to it so that you can take control back of your story and become the puppeteer, right? You're pulling your own strings. And this ability to come through this fire transformed, I think for a lot of us will be paired with a past life healing. So this week, if you can, I do urge anyone listening to connect with St. Lucy, right? As it's her feast day this Friday, which it just makes it easier to connect with her as it's in alignment with where we are in the cosmos right now, right? And she will support you in bringing light to the darkness. So she will point out what you should be working on overcoming, right? And she will support you with the wisdom you need to overcome it. So not just where we need to be working, but also how, right? She is a light bringer aligned with Venus energies. And if you can combine working with her along with past life regression or past life healing work, that will be actual chef's kiss and what you should be doing at this time to help bring you into alignment with your highest timeline, right? This work brings you into the position of being in control of your life and your story. And that is this week's reading. I hope you found it helpful, and I will be back soon with an updated reading. Bye, guys.